Hello there. Welcome back to another episode of Star Wars in a Galaxy, watching all the Star Wars we can get our hands on. I'm Eli.
I'm Jacob.
And we're back with another special episode. This time we are on Zoom again. But never fear, we will get to in-person recording as soon as we can back to it, because we both love to do it. But what do we got planned for today, Jacob?
Today, we have something very special. We have a character appreciation day for none other than the one, the only, Ahsoka Tano.
Absolutely, we are doing an Ahsoka Tano Character Appreciation Day. We haven't done one of these in over a year, so we thought it was time to bring it back. Character Appreciation Day, for those who don't know, is when we focus on a singular character. We use some fun facts. We talk about our opinions about that character, and all that kind of good stuff. Should we just get into this?
Yeah, I really. Where do you want to start? Or where really should we start with this?
I want to just ask you overall, what are your opinions about Ahsoka Tano?
I mean, overall, obviously, since I agreed to do this, I do quite like Ahsoka. She's one of my favorite characters. Obviously, me being a huge Rebels and Clone Wars fan, she plays a major role in both of those. And yeah, I really like her, as do many. I think because of the optimism and the hope that she embodies, and I think she kind of in many ways symbolizes, at least at times, she kind of symbolizes a little bit of what's been lost in the Jedi Order, like as they've kind of slowly fell and been corrupted in the falling decades or centuries of the Republic. Like she kind of has that more selfless outlook of just wanting to jump in and do whatever she can to help people and always try to do the right thing rather than do what is politically expedient. Well, a little bit like Anakin, I'd say, but different, but a similar kind of disruptive energy. Maybe more like Qui-Gon.
There's, at least in my opinion, and I agree with a lot of what Jacob said, Ahsoka is one of my 5 favorite Star Wars characters. I think she's
Oh,
number
wow.
4 or 5 on that list, probably. Yoda, then Obi-Wan and Luke somewhere, then Rey and Ahsoka down there, in the back half of my top 5. One of the things about Ahsoka that I love about her is that I don't feel like we get as a complete of an arc for any character as we do Ahsoka. I mean, we've gotten close. There are characters with character arcs comparable to Ahsoka's. I would argue that Luke or Ezra or I'm trying to even think. Saw Gerrera is a good example of a very fleshed out character arc. I'm not just talking about the movies because, like, if we include the movies, then we could go with like Rey and
Yeah, but like
all
like
those
some,
people.
someone who's primarily in TV shows. I guess for Ahsoka's
I'm just saying,
case.
like, somebody who's in more than a trilogy. So, like,
Yeah,
if Rey
yeah,
were in more movies, then I would consider her, but I would go with people like Anakin/Vader, Luke, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, Ezra, people who have had so much time to grow.
yeah.
And Ahsoka is cream of the crop because she's gotten a movie, 7 seasons of the Clone Wars, and like 1.5 seasons of Rebels, as well as The Mandalorian, an episode of The Mandalorian to grow and to develop as a character. And I think she's one of the most well-rounded characters. Ahsoka's the kind of person that, like, if we're in a galaxy far, far away, depending on the era, of course, the first person I'd turn to be a friend with is Ahsoka.
Hmm, interesting.
Like, I like Yoda and Obi-Wan and Luke better, but I make friends with Ahsoka faster than any character, maybe other than Rey in the galaxy far, far away, because I think she's such a likable character. I think she's also such a uniquely relatable character. And I love how she could have totally been overshadowed by having basically one of the most famous Jedi of all time as her master, but she
Yeah.
didn't. She became an equal force in the Jedi Order, and she became her own legend in a way that is very unique to her, and yet is so perfect for her.
Yeah, she definitely seems more grounded, maybe, than some of the other Jedi. I don't know exactly why that is, but that is definitely something that is appealing about me to her. Like, obviously, when I talk about that, like even within the time of the within her time at the Jedi Order before Order 66.
Absolutely, I agree with that one. Next part is 5 fun facts about Ahsoka Tano. You want to go first for this one, or you want me to go for my number 5 fact?
Uh, yeah, you can go first.
Okay, my number 5 fact is, something that's it's not the craziest, most out there fun fact, but it's still cool for those of you who haven't noticed. Ahsoka does appear, her voice does appear in the Rise of Skywalker Be With Me scene, where she gives advice to Rey to defeat Palpatine on Exegol. Um, while we do not know if she is dead, like most, if not all, of the other Jedi in that scene, Dave Filoni did collaborate with director J.J. Abrams to put Tano in said scene where she talks to us, where she talks to Rey.
That was definitely a cool touch, and when I went back and watched that scene and it was pointed out to me, I thought that was really cool. There was actually an interview where that it doesn't necessarily mean that she's dead. Because he
Yeah,
kind of said, obviously there are other Jedi before have reached out in the Force. Luke in the Last Jedi, Obi Wan, Obi Wan and Yoda in the original trilogy.
yeah,
So that gives me hope because yeah, we really don't know what happens to Ahsoka yet, and
yeah,
I guess that's one thing I'm looking forward to in the coming years is finding out what happens to
yeah.
Ahsoka, especially.
Bold prediction, by the way. You know how
Yeah,
the Ninth Jedi takes place hundreds of years after Episode 9?
all right.
I predict that Ahsoka is still alive by then.
You think Ahsoka's going to be alive in hundreds of years?
Yes, I think Dave refuses to let her die.
Do
Yes.
you think the Ahsoka lives shirt
Is like
means
really
Ahsoka lives for
literal.
all time?
Yes, actually,
She's
I do.
immortal.
Yes, I do. She has the literal life essence of the daughter in her. What can't she do? I'm mostly joking, but kind of not, honestly.
I mean, that would, at the rate we're going, that would not entirely surprise me. But yeah, it's we will see. We
What do
will
you about?
see.
What's your 5th one?
I didn't really put them in. I didn't put them in an order, but I guess I'll start. I think this is not a super deep cut. But I think it's definitely worth talking about is the fact that the convor that follows Ahsoka around is the animal form of the daughter of Mortis, or is in some way very connected to the daughter. And I think that's cool because what does that say about Ahsoka? I think that's kind of cool that part of the daughter, at least, or some of the daughter's essence, is now following Ahsoka around, even follows her into the world, but into the world between worlds. I think that kind of embodies the kind of purity of intentions and optimism that Ahsoka has in the face of so much that she faces.
It also follows her out of the world between worlds as well, because we see it in The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
So I think that's interesting. I'll get on to my 4th fact here, which is not about Ahsoka herself per se, but it is about her original voice actor, Ashley Eckstein, who heard of a Star Wars fan who was a girl getting bullied at school because she had a Star Wars lunchbox, and she then created her company, Her Universe, which makes all sorts of apparel and clothing for female fans of any franchise to help them feel more included and welcomed in their respective fan bases, which I just think is really cool and I think is such a positive force in the world in general.
Yeah, good on her for that. And I have to say a lot of the accessories, maybe not necessarily for me, maybe not necessarily the women's clothes specifically, but I think even for me, a lot of those accessories, like I'm very tempted to grab some of those. They have some very very cool stuff. They have some very cool stuff going on. And I've not bought anything personally, but it does make me very wanty whenever I pop over to that website. Okay, my second fact. This is one. This is kind of a bigger. This is a bigger fact, but parts of this I didn't really know before. So I think most Star Wars fans, I mean most Star Wars fans, if you've watched Rebels, let's say, you know that Ahsoka was Fulcrum, the mysterious rebel coordinator in season one. But she actually got the job of Fulcrum, or she got the job of being the kind of the rebel intelligence commander, intelligence coordinator, because Bail Organa actually heard about the resistance movement that she kind of helped create on the planet Rada in the Ahsoka novel and offered Ahsoka the job because of that. And the name Fulcrum actually comes, according to the novel, or according to, oh gosh, I can't remember what it was, but the name Fulcrum actually comes from the communication frequency that the Republic used to talk to Saw Gerrera and the Onderon rebels. I think that is very funny because we just watched those episodes as well. That was very recent.
Yeah, absolutely. I would just add to that. Yeah. If anybody has not read the Ahsoka book by E.K. Johnston, it is very good, and I would recommend it. It's one of the Star Wars books that I actually have read. And for any big fans of Ahsoka and how she operated between the Siege of Mandalore and Star Wars Rebels, this is about as good a peek as you can get into that story. The last 50 pages, in general, for me, were just riveting, and I loved every page of that thing.
I need to reread that book because I feel like it's been so long since I've read it that I don't remember much of it.
You want me to do the next one? Number three?
Go for it. Lay it on me.
I want to talk about a Clone Wars arc called Return to the Jedi, which was never completed for the Clone Wars, but was planned, where Ahsoka would help the Jedi Order and travel beneath the Jedi Temple to a Sith shrine, which was later mentioned in the canon novel Tarkin by James Luceno. And then she would have actually fought Darth Sidious below the Jedi Temple in that arc. There were storyboards made for this. It actually happens. Like, this is legit.
Wow. That wow.
Yeah.
That's
It's
all I can
it,
say.
it's a I also love that the arc is called Return to the Jedi, which is of course a great twist on Return of the Jedi. Um and I just think I think it would have been a really interesting arc out of a lot of the arcs that were planned but not seen. I think it would have been really interesting. Along with, there were other Clone Wars arcs like the second Mon Calamari arc that were interesting. Bad Batch on Kashyyyk, Yuuzhan Vong alien abduction. Like there were all those really weird Clone Wars arcs that were planned for season 7 and actually 8, the unfinished season 8 of
Yeah.
the Clone Wars, that were never actually shown, but I think would have been really interesting.
Wow. Okay. Is very cool. That's very cool. Okay. For my third fact, this is another one that some people may know, but it was definitely cool for me to find out, which is that in Rebels, Ahsoka's white lightsabers are actually the kyber crystals in them are actually the purified kyber crystals from a lightsaber belonging to the Inquisitor, the sixth brother, because she actually fought and defeated the sixth brother Honorata after the Empire tried to track her down for starting the resistance movement. I think that's pretty cool because that was kind of a big deal. Not necessarily a big deal, but that was something that was done more in Legends. With gosh, was it Corin Horn maybe who had a purified Sith crystal in his lightsaber in Legends. I can't remember who it was. There's someone in the new Jedi Order. So I just think it's cool that they're bringing that back.
Absolutely. Again, read Ahsoka. Great book. It's a very fascinating look. And the fact that Ahsoka defeats the Sith brother without even having a lightsaber at the time is like so incredibly badass.
And that really that also I don't even remember that she didn't have a lightsaber, but that definitely makes more sense now why she was able to just go completely nuts on the second or the seventh sister and like stop her lightsaber just with her hands, like
Yep,
grabbing the blade in Rebels. That was just the coolest moment. And now I guess there's some backstory for that as well. So even better.
absolutely. Um, okay. Here's a fun fact for you about Chapter 13 of The Mandalorian. Dave Filoni revealed behind the scenes that Ahsoka telling Din about Grogu and his backstory was indeed inspired by Obi-Wan telling Luke about his father in A New Hope. Those scenes were meant to be mirrors of each other. Or like a certain magic flannel jeans wizard would say, it's like poetry, they rhyme.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting and something I did not know.
Yeah, that's very
Go.
cool. What is the who confirmed that?
That's Dave Filoni.
Oh, the goat, Dave Filoni. Okay, my number four. So Ahsoka's forehead headdress, not her Montrals, because those are part of her body, but her forehead headdress, the little kind of the little triangles between the or where the Montrals and her skin meet, I guess. That is an tooth headdress, which is in Togruta tradition, worn by warriors if they defeat an Ackle, which is a fierce four-legged predator from the Togruta home planet of is Sheely the Togruta home planet? Because I know that's where Ahsoka's from, but I can't remember if that's the main planet.
I mean, there are Togrutas on Kiros as well, but we know Ahsoka is from Shalai is always how I pronounced it.
July. Oh, okay.
So anyway,
Okay. Well,
yeah.
it's a fearsome four-legged predator, and should a Togruta warrior defeat one, then the teeth are fashioned into such a headdress. So this headdress is really only for kind of the boldest and strongest of the Togruta warriors. And it's so I think it's kind of amazing that Ahsoka has one because we see her in one like the first time when she's like 14 stepping off the shuttle in the Clone Wars movie for the very first time, which just that suggests that she completed this challenge somehow before she even had a Jedi Master and was a formal Padawan, which that is pretty crazy. But
It's
that
pretty
just
impressive.
I guess that just speaks to just some of the power and skills that one can have in Star Wars as a Force user
Absolutely.
compared to warriors who are not.
Okay, I think you're gonna like my last fact. My last fact, I didn't believe it when I found it, and then I looked into it more, and it's completely and utterly legit too.
All right. If you have to like tell if you have to say that it's completely legitimate beforehand, that it's about to be crazy. Lay it on me.
What if I told you that the biggest twist in the Clone Wars involving Ahsoka almost never happened? Although Ahsoka leaves the Jedi Order at the end of the Clone Wars 5th season, the storyline initially had her return to the Order. Filoni said that this would be the quote normal arc and suggested to Lucas that she instead remain expelled. Lucas agreed.
Wow.
You heard it here, not first because I looked this up, but yeah, Ahsoka wasn't always going to leave.
Would that have then killed her in order? Would they have then just insinuated that she died in Order 66 then?
I don't think so. I think the implication is because I read elsewhere that Lucas had always intended her to survive Order 66,
Hmm.
so she
Okay.
probably must have survived through other means. My
Still
guess would
though, oh
be
my
my
gosh, the
guess would be
butterfly effect of
honestly
that would be insane.
my guess would be honestly the Siege of Mandalore would play out very similar, except for in this version, Ahsoka actually is still a
Is
Jedi. But like it's ironic because you make Ahsoka a Jedi in the Siege of Mandalore, and like not crazy a ton is like changed.
yeah. I mean, I
I
think
mean,
I
it's
think
obviously significant to the story that she isn't, but in
yeah.
that arc specifically, you can change a few things here and there, and it'll be fine.
Yeah. I think you would definitely start to see some changes further down the road, in Rebels, in The Mandalorian. So wow, that's kind of unbelievable because that ended up being one of the defining moments of the Clone Wars and of her as a character, her choosing to leave the Jedi Order. So that
Yep,
almost just never happened.
yep, that
Wow.
almost never happened.
Goodness gracious. It's funny how these decisions can just have such a big impact down the road because I don't think anybody could have predicted, the character that Ahsoka would become and
Yeah,
what she would come to symbolize and represent at the time when she
absolutely.
was created. That was a lot of foresight on their part then. Okay, my last one. Um, as a child, actually, this goes back to baby Ahsoka. She was almost captured by the Zygerians as a baby. The Zygerians actually sent a bounty hunter disguised as a Jedi for Ahsoka because this bounty hunter's job, I guess, was to try and get force sensitive infants and then turn them into slaves or servants for the queen, the Zygerian queen. And this bounty hunter actually disguised as a Jedi actually successfully took Ahsoka from her parents, but Plo Koon actually showed up on Shalai right as this imposter was making their escape, and maybe that is why Ahsoka and Plo Koon, or part of why Ahsoka and Plo Koon have a really close and a really close relationship beyond most of what we see from the Jedi High Council.
Absolutely. You know the other part of this arc? This is the funny part of this episode. Not episode, but like it was drafted into a story.
Yeah,
But the idea was supposed to be that Ahsoka was well, because the Zygerian was supposed to be very like nice and outwardly friendly, and Plo Koon is supposed to be this imposing, towering figure. And the moral that Filoni was trying to put there was, Plo Koon had the good intentions, but the Zygerian didn't. Don't judge a book by its cover.
yeah. I think don't judge a book by its cover. Also, Jedi, you really need a better PR team because this seems to
Yes,
happen
yes, you
so much. Like
do.
this ends up happening in on Rhodia.
In
Um,
Children of the Force.
yeah, Children of the Force. So I don't know if maybe this was recycled or they cut the Ahsoka part because they thought it would be too similar. But either way, since both are canon, man, the Jedi really should have hired someone to work on their public image.
Yeah, and like half the galaxy doesn't know what Jedi are. Okay, next we have what is your favorite portrayal of Ahsoka? Do you prefer the portrayal by Ashley Eckstein or do you prefer the portrayal by Rosario Dawson?
I mean, for me, that is like Ashley Eckstein, hands down, 10 million billion bajillion %. I like Ashley Eckstein's portrayal of Ahsoka so much more. And I know that it's definitely comparing apples to oranges, live action versus animation. But I mean, I just didn't really nothing about Rosario Dawson's portrayal of Ahsoka really clicked for me. Obviously, she is not the same person as Ashley Eckstein, so it's going to be different. But it feels like for whatever reason, for 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 whatever number of reasons, whether it was just her as an actor or whether it was also, in the directing, she not receive the right direction, it just really felt like she didn't even try to bring any of Ahsoka's mannerisms or qualities to her portrayal. The timbre of her voice, the cadence of her delivery and her speech, any of the mannerisms that made Ahsoka Ahsoka. So her in Ahsoka in the Mandalorian really felt inconsistent to me, which I don't really mind a ton because obviously characters change, but it felt not justifiable, or I should say, it felt like it was inconsistent beyond what the time difference, the time passed from her last appearance, could really explain. And I do admire how the show tried to give Ahsoka some well-earned maturity. She's a little bit calmer on the outside. Maybe she's a little more jaded, clearly at this point a little more jaded. But that portrayal to me, it just really disappointed me and made me feel sad because it just came off as lacking the kind of profound benevolent energy and sense of sincerity that made all of Ahsoka's previous appearances, from the very first Clone Wars appearance all the way up through Rebels, so appealing. I feel like it took a lot of that away. And it also really didn't sit right with me how it felt like she, in the fight scenes, against the warlord's troops. I can't remember the name of the warlord right now. It felt like she took pleasure, or at least went out of her way to defeat these troops in a very gruesome and kind of cruel manner. And it felt very out of character for her to be kind of going out of her way to instill fear.
I respect your opinion. I don't necessarily agree. I like Rosario Dawson's performance in The Mandalorian quite a bit. I think there's a lot of stuff that she does get right about Ahsoka. However, I do agree that I like Ashley better. Ashley is just a gem, and she is Ahsoka in so many ways now. Um, and her, it never feels like Ashley ever phones in Ahsoka. It feels like she's always there in the moment as the character. You can like I I look at Ahsoka and I think of Ashley, and I look at Ashley and I think of Ahsoka. And I think the two are so intertwined now, and I think I think they're really they Ahsoka really works with Ashley's voice, and Ashley really works as
Mm.
Ahsoka.
Yeah, I respect your opinion. I will say that for now.
What about best piece of media featuring Ahsoka? Best TV episode, best movie, I guess, if you wanted to put that in there. I picked two episodes. I picked Together Again, which is the final episode of the Martez Sisters arc, and I picked Twilight of the Apprentice, which is the final episode of season 2 of Star Wars Rebels. I think both of them are very powerful performances by Ashley as Ahsoka. Ahsoka in Together Again sacrifices herself for two sisters who are trying to make a living in a galaxy who she met like a week ago. And she apologizes for lying to them and keeping her true identity a secret. And I think it's just such a great look at how Ahsoka adapts to being herself outside of the Jedi after she leaves. And then Twilight Apprentice, what can you say about Twilight the Apprentice that hasn't been said before? I'm no Jedi, investigating Malachor, fighting Maul, contacting Vader and Anakin, and what can't you say about Twilight Apprentice that hasn't been said before?
I don't know. I mean, Charlie the Apprentice, one of my favorites, pretty phenomenal. Yeah, that's definitely one of those. I think that's one of the defining moments of Ahsoka. You know, when she decides to sacrifice herself in order to save Ezra and to save Kanan and to save Chopper as well.
Let's
So
let's put a pause on that because we have another section about that later. But
we
what do
do,
you have
yes,
a
we do.
best
I'm not going to
piece
go
of
into that.
media?
I have my best pieces of media, and these are both in my best moments. But they shouldn't be a surprise. But I really think that obviously Twilight of the Apprentice, and I don't want to steal your or my thunder since I assume I assume it's gonna be in your list as well.
Yep.
But I would say for my if I wanted to be a if I wanted to pick something from the Clone Wars, I would have to say I think that I think that her arc, the wrong Jedi to catch a Jedi arc, might be more definitive and important for her character. But I think that overall, in terms of the best piece of media that she really heavily features in, I think it would have to be the Final Order 66 arc, you know, Shattered in those episodes.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great arc, and that's a great episode. Shattered is fantastic. Yeah. Should we go on to best allies?
Best allies. Yes. Um Now for me for this one, I tried to not think about it um as just which are my favorite characters that she is like friends with or allies with, but rather which characters that
Have the
she
best
is friends with
relationships?
that does she have like the most. I think my criteria for this was really just like who does she have like the most interesting relationships with. So I guess keep
Yeah,
that in
that's what I
mind.
did. That's what I
Okay.
did for mine too. So, you want to go
It's
first? Or you
kind
want me
of
to go first?
yeah. It's kind of like how for the retrospectives I pick like the best characters who aren't in like absolutely everything, but rather the best characters who really kind of had a big moment in that season in particular.
Absolutely. You want to go ahead?
Um,
You want me to
yeah,
go
I'll go
first?
first.
Okay. Number three.
My number three pick is Ezra Bridger. I really like Ahsoka's relationship with Ezra. I think obviously one of the most important moments for them is when Ahsoka is the one. Or yeah, it's not. She's not necessarily the one because there was no one else there, but she is able to convince Ezra not to try and bring Kanan back, and I think the fact that she is able to do that and also understand the fact that she is able to do that by understanding what Ezra is going through and also having the good sense to say that's a bad idea, I think is really a testament to their relationship. I just like kind of the it's like Ahsoka is kind of like the cool like if Ezra is the kind of petulant surly teenager, which he literally is, and Kanan is the exasperated dad. Then I think
Ahsoka's the cool
Ahsoka
aunt.
would be like, yeah, she's like the cool aunt who comes around every so often, and I think I honestly don't think we got to see enough of. I really wish that we'd gotten to see more of Ahsoka just being Ahsoka in Rebels, just seeing what she was like as a person, and part of that is because I really wanted her to establish relationship with the Ghost crew, and I don't think it would have been right for this story for her to necessarily become part of the Ghost crew. But part of that is because I thought she had a really cool relationship with Ezra.
Well, don't count your chickens yet because I think we're going to get some more development of her relationship with Ezra and
Oh, fingers
Sabine
crossed.
in her spin off show. So,
Fingers
Uh,
crossed.
I think that's gonna happen. My number three is Yoda.
Ooh.
Yoda, man. Yoda. The Gathering arc. Watch the Gathering arc and see Ahsoka's relationship with Yoda. It's very clear. And in the Ahsoka trial arc, it's very clear that Yoda's like one of those, a teacher's not supposed to have favorites, but you're one of my favorites. Um,
Yeah.
and he clearly shares this very special bond with Ahsoka. And there is this kind of part, especially in the trial arc, where he's like, you know, this girl is growing disillusioned with the Jedi Order, and honestly, I can't blame her. I totally understand where she's coming from. I may not agree with her methods, but I totally understand why she's feeling this way, and I totally understand why we failed as an order.
Yeah.
Of course, he doesn't act on it as much as he probably should have, but there is that sense of of Yoda just like, yeah, we fucked up a little bit on this one.
Yeah. I mean, I love their relationship as well. That's a good pick. I think I've realized I've going to be doing a lot of gushing about Rebels, but that moment in Rebels when they're in the temple and Yoda shows up, and then there's just that one moment where Ahsoka kind of hesitates and she looks back and she looks at Yoda's kind of presence, however he's Yoda's kind of force manifestation where he was talking to Ezra, and that just one moment where he like nods at her and then she nods back. There's just so much. There's so much wrapped up in that moment. It's such a beautiful moment.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Who's your second one?
My second pick is Padme, Padme Amidala, because
Thank you so much. I was this close to putting Padme on my list, and then I decided to keep the my second character in, but I was so close to picking Padme. Thank you for picking Padme. I agree with that so much. Go on, sorry.
yeah, okay. Thank you then. Gosh, what is there to say about this relationship? I think it's one that we don't get enough of, but I think that it's interesting because I think that they have a very strong rapport because they both have to deal with Anakin so much, both through the good and the bad, and they're both kind of caught up in the crazy, like the crazy emotional whirlwind that is Anakin Skywalker. And I think that the fact that they are two of the people who, and Obi Wan, he is definitely in there as well, but really not to the degree that I think emotionally Ahsoka and actually no, scratch that because as we find out later on, I think Obi Wan just doesn't show it as much, but I think they really just have a really good rapport because they both are kind of in this place where they often feel like their lives are kind of revolving around Anakin at times, if you know what I mean. That does sound a bit extreme, but I think that that's kind of the implication, or that's how it plays out sometimes. So I think I really like it when they kind of come together with this mutual acknowledgement and are able to have their own friendship flourish and kind of feel some respite. And what I think one part that I really like is the ironically, since I don't like Lux Bonteri very much, the I can't remember the name for the arc. The heroes on both sides arc, I think, is a really good example of Padme and Ahsoka's friendship and kind of a little how they can kind of stand as equals, and also Padme can be a mentor for Ahsoka. I think it's awesome.
Absolutely, I agree with you. Of all of Ahsoka's key friendships, how many can you name that's her with a woman? Not many. And that's what's so special about Padme, in my opinion, is that, you know, I feel like Padme, if Anakin and Obi-Wan are the older brothers, or sort of like the father figures that Ahsoka never had, then
Yeah.
Padme is the older sister. And Ahsoka needs that. Because Ahsoka needs somebody, who she can see herself in. Not that she can't see herself in Anakin or Obi-Wan. There's just something about identifying with somebody of your same gender that's very important for somebody like Ahsoka, who is in that age where you're trying to figure out exactly who you are and
Yeah.
what your path is going to be. I still love that line from Crisis on Naboo. Hopefully, I'll be where I always be. He means saving the day. Of course, he does.
Yeah. That's a good example of kind of the bond that they have because they both are constantly having to deal with Anakin's zaniness, you know?
Absolutely, 100%. You want me to get to the second one?
What's your
My
second?
second one is R2D2,
Oh, a droid.
a droid.
All right.
R2D2. I'm saying it right now. It's the chemistry between we know the chemistry between Anakin and R2. We know the chemistry between and Luke and R2. We know the chemistry between Rey and R2. We know the chemistry between Leia and R2. Nobody talks about the chemistry between Ahsoka and R2, but I think they should because I think there's a
Do you
scene
think
with
they
both
got
of them in the Ahsoka book, and I won't spoil it for anybody else, even though I spoiled that entire book. But the first time Ahsoka sees R2 again in so many years is one of the most touching things I've ever seen.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
it is.
and, and I remember E.K. Johnston writes it so well, and it feels so incredibly natural. And it's one of those relationships that you don't even think about, but once you start looking into it, is one of those. R2 is always there for Ahsoka. She's basically an honorary Skywalker in that way because he treats her like he would any member of that clan.
Yeah, definitely, I think. I mean, R2 kind of occupies such a unique position among all these characters because I don't want to say that he's necessarily passive or doesn't do a lot, but in some ways he is kind of a wallflower existing and just taking in so many crazy events over the course of the prequels, the Clone Wars, the intermediary period, like through all the movies, through all of the mainly explored timeline. So I think that you're definitely onto something about how he can have very interesting relationships with characters. And I think Ahsoka is kind of a perfect example of that.
Absolutely, yeah. What is your last one?
My number one, I couldn't really say anyone other than Anakin for
Yeah,
this one. Like,
let me just pause you for a second.
are
My
you going to
number
talk
one
about
was
Anakin as
Anakin as
well?
well.
All
Yeah,
right, all right. We can just kind of roll it up into one. I think for me, obviously it ends in tragedy, but there is just something very beautiful about their relationship, From the very first moment, it's like you never would have made it as Obi-Wan's apprentice, but you might
but
just
you
make
might
it
make
as
it as
mine.
mine.
Kind of the understanding that they both kind of feel like misfits. They can't quite conform to the norms of the Jedi Order. Now, how much of Ahsoka's kind of penchant for rule bending and being kind of for better or for worse, a very free spirit. How much of that comes from Anakin since he's her master? We don't know. But I mean, it is just oftentimes I am not a huge fan of Anakin as a character, but I think that's something that the Clone Wars really shows us and really takes pains to show us is how Ahsoka is one of the people who can really kind of bring out the best in Anakin.
I was just gonna say that Ahsoka is best. That Anakin is best when he's with Ahsoka.
Yeah.
That is one of the things I was going to say.
No
Um,
kidding. great minds think alike, I guess.
Yeah. No, absolutely. You said a lot of what I was going to say, but I'll just add on.
Sorry for
I can
stealing your
think of.
thunder then, dude.
No, it's
I'm
totally fine.
sorry.
Whenever Ahsoka and Anakin are in an episode together, there's one piece of memorable dialogue that I always remember. From the Clone Wars movie. Let's talk. It was Master Yoda who said, "Old sins cast long shadows," and it was Master Skywalker who said, "I don't want to talk about my past." Um, or like any of the countless Ahsoka Anakin banter moments. Or what about when you said, "Don't worry, Snips. We're never going to be going near that wall when their backs up against a wall." Um,
Yeah.
it's like there's some moments with those two that are just like Ahsoka doesn't really have with anyone else, and Anakin certainly does not have with anyone else. Um, Maybe Obi-Wan. That's the only thing I was gonna say about Anakin, but still, yeah, it, it's such to a point that almost every relationship that Ahsoka has in the Clone Wars is defined by how they're related to Anakin, and every relationship that Anakin has, at least in the Clone Wars, is about how they're defined with Ahsoka. He force chokes Poggle the Lesser. He does that fugitive scene at the end of the Jedi Who Knew Too Much with Ahsoka. Did you see that fight with Barriss? Like, that's intense. He would not go that far for anybody except for Ahsoka and Padme and Obi-Wan. Those are the three people. That's it. Palpatine in a different way, but
As the Clone Wars goes on, we really see how much of being a Jedi obviously is, restraint, tamping down your emotions, you know, kind of being like a rock in the river, you know. But then with Anakin and Ahsoka, they're kind of to each other the two people who they can really fully be themselves, or they can be a part of themselves, because I think it's like you can feel like you're totally being yourself with one person and totally being yourself with another person, but then you show different parts of yourself to one person versus someone else. But I think that Ahsoka and Anakin in the Jedi Order, in terms of how they feel about dealing with what it takes to be a Jedi, it's the only place for them to be themselves, is when they're like kind of hanging out on the missions or whatever.
absolutely,
You know,
100%. I
and I
agree
don't
with
know. I don't,
that.
I don't think I don't think I don't know if I really made that make sense, but
No, I get that. There's a part of Ahsoka that comes out when she's with Anakin, and there's a part of Anakin that comes out when he's with Ahsoka. And I'm sure we'll get to that. You want to get to best enemies?
best enemies, yeah. Do you want to start or should I?
I'll start on this one maybe.
All right, yeah, go for it.
Number three on my list is Asajj Ventress.
Mm,
Um, they're both the headstrong Padawans of somebody who is in the Qui-Gon Jinn, Yoda, Obi-Wan Kenobi line. And they both have a lot to prove, and they both want to prove it, and I think their rivalry, especially ending the way it does in The Jedi Who Knew Too Much and To Catch a Jedi, is a really interesting one, and how they go from enemies to becoming sort of allies.
yeah, I mean, I definitely want to hop on here for a minute, since Ventress, I had a very hard time from both the friends and the enemies list, actually, because of the changing nature of their relationship. I had a Ventress was pretty much my fourth place pick for both of them, like the final cut when I was thinking about who I want to pick. But yeah, I agree with everything you said. I think it's really cool how their relationship evolves, and if it ever comes up again, I would really love to see them reunited at some point, in any other time period. But yeah, Ahsoka and Ventress, very unique relationship. Ventress obviously goes from it's interesting how Ahsoka also kind of catches up to Ventress in terms of maturity. Like we start out with, Ventress. What does she say in one of the in the episode where they're rescuing? Maybe they're rescuing Newt Gunray. I can't remember.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the Cloak of Darkness.
yeah, Cloak of Darkness. And she's like, "Oh, it's the Skywalker's disgusting pet." And then she says, like, well, she says, "Stand aside, and I'll give you a cookie," which I think is just it's a little jarring, but it is absolutely hilarious, and it really shows what Ventress thinks of her. And then, obviously, by the time the wrong Jedi rolls around, she really, she really has a lot of begrudging respect, probably, but she has respect. She nonetheless has a ton of respect for Ahsoka. So I really like how they kind of their relationship changes.
Absolutely. What's your number three?
My number three is Barriss Offee. Obvious.
Ah, yes.
Come on, friends to enemies. It's just
It's
heartbreaking.
all
It is
there.
it is very sad, and I honestly think I honestly think we need something more from Barris's perspective, just to answer the
102%.
question of, oh God, why? How could you do this? I just think they have a pretty crazy relationship. So I would, and because of the role it, like, we don't see a lot of it, I think, in the Clone Wars in terms of the time it takes up, the space it takes up. But I would definitely be remiss if I didn't include that for Ahsoka, just because of how much it influences her.
Absolutely, I agree with you with that one. Barriss and Ahsoka's relationship is really interesting, and I want to see it develop. Absolutely. Number two for me, Darth Maul. Darth Maul. From the 4 episodes we see of them, one of my all-time favorite Clone Wars exchanges. Oh, you have Kenobi's arrogance. You'll find I have many qualities for you to dislike. They are the Phantom Apprentices. Maul draws the conclusions as well as any fan theorizer would. They've both been cast away by their orders, and it's how they choose to deal with that that separates them.
Absolutely.
Absolutely,
I think
I think.
that is a very good take. And yeah, my number two is actually also Maul. Yeah, I mean, I think you said it very well. They almost have a. It's weird because at the beginning, when Maul comes back into the Clone Wars after his extended hiatus of being a metal spider, um, it feels like Ahsoka and Maul don't really have a lot to be enemies about. But then as it goes on, I think the Clone Wars did a really good job of taking this relationship where Maul really didn't have any beef specifically with Ahsoka. Neither did Ahsoka with Maul, just beyond the fact that obviously Maul is incredibly pissed with Anakin, or not Anakin. I mean, he
Anakin,
probably is
yes,
pissed.
and
I mean, he
Obi
probably
Wan.
is pissed with Anakin, but like I meant to say Obi-Wan. I think
Yeah.
it's kind of amazing how, without taking up too much screen time, they kind of believably go from that to then in season 7 Clone Wars Saved. Obviously, they have the huge showdown, and there's a lot of beef, and
And
it's just really interesting the way it plays out and how they.
also with them in Rebels and Twilight of the Apprentice, too. Lady
Yeah,
Tano.
Twilight of the Apprentice, I think, like, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, they're great. Love it.
Yeah. Number one, and I think you and I might have the same number one. Ahsoka.
Yeah, it's got to be Darth Vader.
It's Vader. Come on. Just like 3 words for you. Actually, one word I already said, which was Ahsoka. And the 3 other words were actually this exchange. Revenge is not the Jedi way. I'm no Jedi. no words. They only got to be in like basically 2 episodes together, Shroud of Darkness and Twilight Apprentice. But like, come on. It is a rivalry that has been hyped ever since Ahsoka left that order.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it is kind of the ultimate boiling over of kind of Anakin's biggest mistake or Anakin's biggest flaw, I think, which is his narcissism when he's like, "Why did you leave me, Ahsoka?" And Ahsoka obviously like she didn't leave Anakin specifically; she left the Order. Like it literally wasn't about Anakin, but Anakin cannot see past how it affected him personally, and yeah, I think it's just phenomenal as well. Their kind of showdown, considering that they didn't really get any encounters before that. So that
Absolutely
it just
not.
kind
Yeah.
of, but obviously with all the history and the emotion, like that, this, yeah, when it plays out like it does, it's heart wrenching.
Let's get to our best 5 moments of Ahsoka Tano.
Best
What's
five
your number five?
moments. All right, we may have some overlaps here. In fact, I
Oh,
know we
I'm sure
will.
we will.
My number, so I think it's going to be interesting to see what order we put them in. My number five best moment is when Ahsoka faces off against the fifth brother and the seventh sister in the future of the Force. Now, I may be biased here because I
You,
am like
you
I'm fully
are.
like a Rebels kid. Like, some
By the
people
way,
grew up
this
with
this
the
this
original
this
trilogy.
shouldn't surprise you. By the way, this is not on my list.
Yeah, I know. I'm
I
I'm
like
I'm
this moment just fine.
I'm
It's a
not even
great
I'm not
moment,
even
but like,
disappointed because like I have a special attachment to it because some kids,
yeah,
some
yeah,
people grew up with the Clone Wars. People grew up with the
yeah.
prequels,
You're a
the
Rebels kid.
originals. I'm a
I get
Rebels kid.
it.
Like
I'm a
that
Clone Wars
is
kid. I get it.
the point at which I was kind of in a not necessarily coming of age, but I was coming of age to a certain stage where I could really appreciate that. Yet I was still young enough to also be able to really appreciate it. So I was just at the perfect age, and that was the first Star Wars content that I actually watched as it was coming out. Like I watched all the Clone Wars after the fact. I would have been way too young when it came out. It would have either gone over my head or given me nightmares, probably both. And this scene, the fifth brother, the seventh sister, they push Zeb out of the way. They're getting to the baby. They take Ezra's lightsaber, and then boom, Ahsoka. Like her reveal, that is just like I can hear the music in my head right now.
Yeah,
It's such an incredible moment. That fight is honestly,
and
it's such a
also,
way for it's such a statement for Ahsoka, coming back into the
absolutely.
game for Rebels. It's
Also,
incredible.
let's talk about that's the first time in Rebels where the light side like wins a duel. Like no contest wins.
Yeah. Well,
Like
I mean, Kanan.
We've seen Kanan and Ezra versus the Inquisitor, and Kanan went into God mode and then beat the Inquisitor, but still that wasn't easy. That required Kanan going into literal God mode. Then Darth Vader wiped the floor with the two of them, but then fifth brother and seventh sister go against Ahsoka, and like it's been very clear they are no match for her. Like
Yeah, like it's just
it,
that is honestly what's so exhilarating about it. In a series like Rebels, which spends so much time just having the heroes, Rebels spends so much time putting the heroes through as much fear and desperation as possible, and that's part of what makes it so good and so gripping in the later seasons. But my God, if it isn't satisfying just once to
yeah.
watch a hero just like hands down mop the floor on some villains, like just
That wasn't a
once.
fight.
That
That
is
was a
an
public
that
humiliation.
was it was a beatdown. Like she was flipping off the walls, and they were so lost. Man,
Yeah.
it was such a good it was such a good it was just such a good way to kind of really bring back Ahsoka with a bang and really like she's about it. Like
Oh yeah. For my number 5 moment, I also went with another great Ahsoka fight which is when she duels General Grievous to a stalemate on the planet of Florum in the episode A Necessary Bond from the
That's
Gathering
a good
arc.
choice. That is a
She's
good
a
one.
Padawan. She hasn't left the Jedi Order yet. She's a Padawan. This is season 5. And yet she, like, keeps pace with Grievous for, like, the entire time. And I would even say was on the winning side of that duel, even though nothing happens to either of them. It shows how much she's grown, because Grievous absolutely, like, it's clear that she's barely keeping pace with Grievous in Duel of the Droids in season 1. But now she's the one who's the aggressor. She's the one who's pushing him back. And it's such a great reminder of how much Ahsoka's grown.
My number 4 best Ahsoka moment: the duel with Maul. The duel with Maul on Mandalore. Is that on your list?
Uh, number 4, defeating Maul on Mandalore.
Wow. Wait, so we actually had him at the same exact place, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Wow. Wow. What again, like a statement for Ahsoka, and really just it just feels like the crescendo of so many mixed emotions for Ahsoka. I really liked it. Obviously, having her defeat Maul, or she had Maul on the ropes by the end. Let's be honest. She was going God mode. It was it was pretty cool. I mean, what do you have
Absolutely.
to say about it? You
She
can
is
probably say something more eloquent and insightful than I can
no,
at this
absolutely.
point.
I think you detailed it perfectly. It's an incredible duel. It's an incredible statement on behalf of Ahsoka Tano. Um, is what I think about it, and it's just like she. It is a. It is a. It is a fight that I didn't think she was going to win as squarely as she did, but she did. And she just handled business. That's what she did. She handled business.
No kidding.
It's a tough duel. It's not an easy duel, but you know that combined with the whole we're all gonna burn, we're all gonna die thing from Maul at the end sets the tone of Phantom Apprentice very well, and it's incredible to see Ahsoka again, as I said with Florum, what how much she's grown and how much she's able to hold her own against a fearsome Sith Lord like Darth Maul.
My number 3 is when Ahsoka. I think this is maybe it's a bit long, but Ahsoka both facing Rex in Order 66 and then miraculously saving Rex
Number
in the Fallen Star
3,
Destroyer.
saving Rex in hyperspace from his inhibitor chip.
There's no way.
Our lists are
We may
just going to
have
be
the
the
same.
same at this
I
point.
wonder. I wonder if they're going to be same. Because I know exactly which 2 moments we're both going to have at the top of the list, and I'm really wondering
If they're going to be in the same order.
and I honestly think I could flip them either way. Like
Yeah,
I just kind
I
of
could see arguments for one of them being at the top, but I think my arguments for why one of them is at the top is just too good, honestly. Anyway, do you want to talk about her saving Rex? I'm one with the Force and the Force is with
yeah.
me.
I mean, obviously, it's an incredible moment that she is able to still want to save Rex even after he kind of tries to kill her, and it's just a incredible. It's an incredible scene. It's kind of heartbreaking. But just seeing Ahsoka be able to step up like that after so long in the Clone Wars, kind of facing a lot of failures and often not being able to like being criticized for not being able to get the job done sometimes. Not like obviously it gets she gets a lot better and a lot more powerful over the course of the show, but this really does feel like the the peak. This feels kind of like the resolution, the crescendo of her being able to take matters into her own hands, and I really like that.
Absolutely. This is it. It shows Ahsoka's compassion. It shows that she cares. It shows that the bond that Rex and Ahsoka have formed, experience outranks everything. Well, it's time she go get some, and she's getting some. Damn it. And she's saving her good friend's sanity. Saving, her good friend's existence, basically. And yeah, it's a really incredible moment. And I love it so much. Jacob, do we want to do a 3, 2, 1, and then we say both at the same time what our number two is just to see?
I think I got it.
Okay,
Should we say our number two or our number? Let's say our number one.
two.
Number
Oh,
two.
number one.
I think it'll make
Number
more
two.
sense if we say our number one.
Number one. Okay.
All right. Three,
3, 2,
2, 1.
1.
Twilight of the
Ahsoka
Apprentice.
leaves. Oh, we did it in the
Oh, we did
opposite
it in
order.
reverse. Oh my gosh. I mean, it was for me. It was basically a tie. Like it's basically a tie. So I
Yeah.
don't really.
Number two,
blame
dueling
you.
Darth Vader on to a stalemate on Malachor and temporarily bringing back Anakin Skywalker. Number one, leaving the Jedi Order after being cleared of criminal charges.
And then for me, it's the
It's the opposite
it's
order.
the opposite. Yeah.
Let's talk about these two because they pack a punch. There's a reason we both put them in the top two.
Yeah. What you want to tackle first? Since I
Let's
think
talk-
it just makes more sense to do them together.
Let's talk Malachor first, maybe.
All right, Malachor, your number two, my number one.
Yeah.
Obvious. I mean, like if you've watched that,
I'm no Jedi.
I assume that everyone who's listening to
Breathing.
this is probably
The cut eye.
yeah. It speaks for itself, but it is just. I was absolutely heartbroken when I
It's
watched
a
that for the
flooring
first
moment.
time.
By the way, did you notice
It is
something
so
about our
intense.
arrangement? By the way,
What?
I put the Clone Wars moment higher, and you put the Rebels moment higher.
That is a good point.
Guilty as charged.
Guilty as charged. I am beginning to sense a pattern here. There's definitely a pattern. But yeah, I just really like this moment. Obviously, I think it was, watching it for the first time with the knowledge, like thinking that it's actually over for Ahsoka. I think in many ways, in some ways, I think knowing that Ahsoka lives has kind of taken a bit of it's taken away a bit of just the absolute sheer gut punch of that moment. But I still think that despite that, it's an incredible moment. Ahsoka finally facing Anakin, having this reckoning, and there's just so much said with so few words. There's so much said in this. It's just masterful.
Absolutely. I love Malachor so much. It's a great reflection of how the relationship between between Ahsoka and Anakin, now Vader, has evolved and reaches its final conclusion, because then Ahsoka goes into the world between worlds and Anakin will die. And Ahsoka will presumably never see him again. It's a heartbreaking moment, but it's done so perfectly, with Matt Lanter's voice being infused with James Earl Jones' voice is the icing on the cake there. Yeah. Do we want to talk about leaving the Jedi Order?
Do I want to talk about it? No,
Yeah.
because it's too sad. But
Yes.
yeah, I mean,
What a twist, man. What a twist. That Ahsoka finally sees what so many have failed to, that the Jedi Order is not what they used to be. And she decides to let it all go. She decides now to decide her own destiny. She decides to do what she wants to do. Man, isn't that powerful?
yeah. I mean, yeah, this moment, I think, in my opinion, while I think that I put while I put the Malachor or Twilight of the Apprentice, the reuniting and reckoning of Ahsoka and Anakin higher, because I think it feels more like the culmination. I think this is probably even more defining in who Ahsoka is as a person.
Absolutely.
And
Um,
I think it just shows it really shows the kind of person that Ahsoka is, where she knows she's doing decidedly not taking the easy road, because I think going back to the Jedi would be so much easier. But she knows that she just knows that she can't. And it's I think that kind of being able to follow what she knows is right, despite despite it being like going to be the hardest thing she's ever done, leaving behind the only community and all of the community that she's ever known. That just really speaks to Ahsoka as a person.
Absolutely. It is such a groundbreaking moment in Star Wars in general, and I just love it so much. It's chef's kiss. And it changed everything. It changed everything. And don't tell me you don't get those warm, fuzzy feelings when the violin music starts playing and she walks down the steps slowly, and Anakin's just watching her with that outstretched hand, and there's nothing he can do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's it. If you're good with that, then I think it's time we get to everybody's favorite part of the Star Wars in the Galaxy.
Everyone's favorite part. Let's do it.
What you've brought me today is worth 1/4 portion. We got more trivia today. We're
This is
excited.
the last trivia. This is like our last. This is our last
Trivia before the live
trivia
stream.
round. Let me pull up my questions. All right. I guess I'll go first this time. Okay. Start off with. I know I would definitely not get this, but somehow I feel like this is gonna be too easy for you. But let's just see. On the Death Star in Episode 4, what docking bay does the Millennium Falcon land in?
That would be in the Death Star.
In the Death Star,
Would
yes.
that be
Which
Docking Bay 327?
no, is docking bay 94.
That's on Tatooine.
Really? Wait. No, no,
That's
no.
on Tatooine. Docking Bay 94
Are
is
you
on
sure?
Tatooine. I'm
Did I mess
99%
up?
sure.
You're right. I messed up. My sincerest apologies. This is why you shouldn't trust me when it this is why Eli is the trivia god. That is why I am not the trivia god. This is why you won our
What is the first name of Captain Nita?
you got me. I don't think I've ever heard the first name of Captain Nita.
That would be Captain Lorth Nita.
Lorth Nita. Where did you find that out? That must be in is that in a reference book, a comic?
Yeah, I think it's reference, but
Mm.
yeah.
I definitely have not. I've definitely
Sorry, I
not heard
like to
that
get
before.
deep cut on the
Yeah,
name
that's a deep
things.
cut. Yeah, that's a good one.
Name things are name questions are my favorites.
Yeah,
So
name questions are they're hard for me. Okay, the iconic line "No, I am your father" in Empire Strikes Back was added in post production in order to keep the major plot twist a secret. What was the line that was used when they were shooting the movie?
no, Obi-Wan killed your father.
Yes, that is correct. So it sort of makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, it
I could
absolutely does.
definitely,
And imagine that twist too.
yeah.
That's still a twist.
I think the search your feelings, you know it to be true, wouldn't make as much sense. It's like he's Vader's not right there, you know. But
Yeah.
I think that could still fly. Would make things
Um.
a little bit awkward though in the Endor scene when Obi
Yeah.
Wan comes back.
Wonder how the fact pov would have worked on that one.
Wait, that it would have been like the opposite then. It would be like Darth Vader never told you what happened to your father. He told me enough. He told me you killed him. I mean,
Yeah. Anyway, what job function do battle droids with red stripes perform?
red stripe. Are they red with the regular tan or red with a gray body?
Red with a regular tan.
Red with a regular tan. Okay. I know that the blue is the pilot. Are they sergeant droids, maybe? Are there a certain rank?
The sergeant droids are yellow.
No, the commander droids are yellow.
The commander droids
Are
are
they
yellow.
not?
Whoops.
Yeah, the commander droids
Yeah.
are yellow. But so
Commander
so
droids are
it's
yellow.
not a rank.
It's not a rank.
Mm. Yeah, I don't know.
It's security.
Security.
Security Battle Lords Red Strikes. But good job with the pilot ones. I was
Yeah.
bouncing back and forth between doing those two. So
I only know that because they throw in the detail of reprogrammed pilot droids in the
oh
Citadel
yeah, in
episode.
in the Citadel. Yeah,
Yeah.
good point. What's the next one you got?
Right. Next up, who is the first character to speak in A New Hope?
These questions are the types that usually trip me
It
up,
is
but it's
this is a tough one.
C-3PO.
Yes, it is C-3PO.
I only know that because he is the first line in New Hope and last line in Revenge of the Sith.
The first character to speak in Empire Strikes Back is a droid. I think that's pretty cool. All right, what you got?
In New Hope, not Empire.
Did I say in Star Wars?
You said Empire.
Oh,
Anyway,
oopsie. No,
how
no.
many parsecs
No,
does
no.
Rey say that Han Solo made the Kessel Run in?
14.
That is correct.
I love that line. 12. 14.
14.
14. How could you, Ray? How
How
could
could
you?
you?
Get it right or don't get it at all? Come on. Okay. What separatist leader wields a cane, a bone cane, that is rumored to be made from the remains of a fallen rival?
I feel like this might be Legends info, and if it is, that's
It is
fine.
possibly Legends, and it is.
But
I think it is Legends info.
I think it's General Grievous, isn't it?
No, it's not General Grievous. It is they in the movies. They're primarily in Attack of the Clones.
Oh, is it Sandhill?
It's Hoggle the Lesser,
Oh,
which makes sense
okay.
when you think about the Geonosian and their penchant for war.
Yeah, that does make sense. Jacob, I'll just say about this question, you asked for it, so you're gonna receive
Uh-oh.
it.
Uh-oh.
What company manufactured the ARC 170 fighter?
The Incom Corporation.
That is correct.
Yes.
Vehicle
All right.
questions.
Vehicle questions. The one thing I still have all my vehicle knowledge from when I was reading reference books, the knowledge that is stuck around. The vehicle
Good
question
stuff, because it's not the knowledge that stuck around. I literally have everything else really great except for that one.
I think one of the only places where I kind of am above average at trivia for vehicles, I'd say. Okay. Which rebel pilot boasts right now I feel like I could take on the whole empire myself. But that may be a misquote, but you get the idea.
I
It's in
get the
Empire Strikes
idea.
Back.
I would ask you. I'm gonna answer that question with another question. Hey Dak, you got that backing track?
Turn it
Turn it
on.
Dak
Yeah,
Relter.
Dak Ralter. I gotta listen to that now after this. Okay.
Hostels on the Hill. Check it out. Bad lip reading. It's a bop.
It is a certified bop.
Which Jedi told Rey, "Let it lift you" on Exegol in the "Be with Me" sequence? Let it lift you.
I have to say I have no idea.
You want to hazard a guess?
Mm. Is it Ahsoka?
It is not Ahsoka. It is her master, Anakin Skywalker.
I didn't know Anakin. Who said the line? Who actually did the deed? Who put it in the booth? Who like
Hayden
which
Christensen.
actor? Hayden Christensen. No kidding.
Yep.
Wow. How cool. How cool. Nice of them to bring him back.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's it for the trivia. Got anything else?
Oh, that's it for me.
That's gonna be it for this episode of Star Wars in Galaxy, watching all the Star Wars we can get our hands on. Thank you for watching this episode. We're going to be off next week We're also not going to be posting any episodes the week afterwards, but we will be on Radio Rebellion's live stream to do some trivia, to bust our chops against Arzu Amin and Hannah from Followers of the Force and Andrew from Outer Rim Raids. It's going to be a fun time, and I encourage all of you to check it out. Alberto's a great guy. We've had him on streams, and I'm really excited. In the meantime, you can follow us on Twitter at AnnaGalaxyPod, Instagram at Star Wars in a Galaxy. You can listen to us on Anchor, Spotify, Breaker, Google Podcasts. Anywhere you listen to your podcasts, we'll be there. I think that's it. So
That is it.
Oh, you can email us at swinagalaxy@gmail.com. Please leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or whatever you review your podcasts. If you can. And until next time, may the Force be with you. Always.